Does unselfish love of others contribute to the happiness, the health, and even the longevity of those who give it? When I was a boy up in high school in New Hampshire, I had the honor of meeting a great American artist by the name of Norman Rockwell. In 1961, that was 8 years before I actually met him, he painted this beautiful picture called The Golden Rule. This appeared on the cover of a famous American magazine at the time. He captured here people focusing their minds on contributing to the lives of others. People of every possible tradition and religion, old people, young people, men, women, people of every class, putting their minds on how they can use their gifts to help others. And if you look at the faces of these individuals, they're all serene. They have tranquility. They have a look of inner peace. Nowadays, we know from the sciences, from neuroscience, brain science, that people who simply put their mind on helping others get activity in a part of the brain which is an emotional center, the mesolimbic pathway, but don't write that down. But it's the part of the brain that is associated with feelings of joy and gratification. So here you have it. And it also sends out one of the 4 happiness chemicals called dopamine. So you look at these people and they have a kind of peacefulness about them and a quiet joy. And they're not even doing anything. They're just reflecting. They're just putting their minds on helping others. Now, there are probably 1,000 studies that have come along in the last 15 years to develop this idea that it's really good to be good, that those who refresh others are themselves refreshed. So, for example, older people, here's an old rabbi with his white beard. We have 8 or 9 studies showing that older adults who involve themselves in volunteering behavior, even at low amounts, just an hour or so a week or 2 hours a week, that they have lower depression rates. And they even live longer if you follow their lives over periods of 15 or 20 years. Maybe they live in a year or 2 longer. They're happier. They find life more meaningful. So if you thought, well, I'm going to retire and go to a club somewhere in Arizona, maybe called Sun City, and get up at noon for my first martini, don't think that way. That's not the way to go. The way to retire is to find meaningful activities using your strengths to contribute to the lives of others. If you look at these young kids here, there are young people in this picture. We have studies going way back to the 1920s showing that young people, preteens who are 12 years old, who have an attitude of, I want to use my talents to help humanity, they actually have a lower level of depression and a lower level of heart disease in their midlife period, in their 50s and 60s. And now these subjects from this particular study are well into their late 90s. Not too many of them are still alive, perhaps 50 or 60, but 2/3 of the ones who are still alive come from the 1/3 who, as 12-year-olds, a long time ago in the late 1920s, said, I want to use my talents to help others. So as a scientific generalization for kids, if you can get them involved in helping behavior, if you can model volunteering for them, it's great for the world, but it's also good for them. It shines a kind of protective halo that follows them their whole life long. There are exceptions, you know. People get terrible diagnoses, people have fatal accidents and so forth, but as a scientific generalization for young kids, it's good to be good. You can think about this gentleman right here, Some people say he looks a little bit like Bill W., who founded Alcoholics Anonymous. And the 12th step in Alcoholics Anonymous is to help other alcoholics. So we did a study with the help of Maria Pagano, who's a very famous researcher. And we showed that the high helpers in AA have a 40% recovery rate 1 year after they go dry. If you go to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, there are greeters at the door, somebody's getting out the chair, somebody's handing out literature, somebody's making the coffee, someone's giving testimony. The high helpers have a 40% recovery rate. The low helpers have a 22% recovery rate. So the upshot is that if you're a high helper recovering from alcoholism, you have twice the likelihood of staying sober 1 year from going dry than you would have otherwise. So that's pretty powerful. There's something about the helping of others that really makes a difference. I could go on and on and on because there are so many areas. You know, some of my colleagues did a study on widows and widowers who, and this is important, were happily married for a long period of time, getting along, right? And someone dies, and the widower goes through a long period of grief and bereavement and sadness. Well, it turns out that those widows or widowers who can self-report helping activities in their environment, where they're just helping kids or helping neighbors, just doing things to help others, they get through this period of grief more quickly, and they heal up in a deeper and in a more lasting way. So I got a call from a Society of Widows and Widowers in New York City. They wanted me to give a talk at their annual convention about this science. So I gave them a talk, and at the end there was a question and answer session. At the end of it, there was a fellow in the back of the room. It was a big convention center. He stood up waving his hand frantically, and he said, "I don't care what you say, buddy. I don't do nothing for nothing." Which basically meant he was thinking, pay it back. He was thinking, what am I going to gain by helping people? What's the payoff? But in fact, if he would just shift his consciousness, like all these people, he would realize that the benefits are there internally. Now, if you could take these benefits and put them in a pill form and sell them at the pharmacy, you'd be very wealthy overnight, because these are really profound benefits. You've got 78% of people in a national survey saying that volunteering helps them recover from loss and disappointment. You know, I was up in Connecticut not too long ago in a town called Newtown, and that's where 3 years ago at a school there, a grade school called Sandy Hook, 20 young kids were killed and 6 teachers were killed. And you know, you look on the glass fronts of the stores, you look at the bumper stickers on the cars, and you know what they say? They all say, "We are Sandy Hook. We choose love." We are Sandy Hook. We choose love. So even in the worst situation in life, because life is peaks and valleys, this isn't just for smiley folks, you know, there are challenges in life. This is still the way to go. The benefits are still there. So never forget, no matter how difficult things become for you, choose love. And if you choose love, you will avoid all those negative alternatives, bitterness, hostility, anger, rumination, which are terrible for your health, which keep your stress up for long periods of time and affect your heart and your hippocampus, even your memory and your wound healing. If you just focus your mind on helping others, right? It actually turns off the brain circuitry associated with negative and hostile emotions. And so it's a total win. Now, not everybody realizes this, but it's right within your own heart. And that's the way you want to live your life. So I got lucky, you know, most of life is luck. I ran into a guy like Norman Rockwell. And can I say one other thing? I heard him give a speech about this painting. He lived in Stockbridge, Massachusetts, but he was up in New Hampshire to give a talk at our high school. See this white ring here? Okay, you know, here's the nun's robe and the shawl of the rabbi, and then it goes around this way. That was a halo. And for Rockwell, he thought the most spiritual thing we can do, whatever our tradition might be, it doesn't matter, the most spiritual path, the most significant window toward whatever there is in this universe that is sacred is through helping others. So absolutely, unselfish love contributes to the happiness, to the health, and even to the length of life. Not all the time, but as a general rule, it's good to be good.